A new report to be released tomorrow by the National Safety Council shows that accidental deaths claim more than 161,000 Americans in 2016. That is up 10% over the previous year. One of the biggest drivers of those numbers is motor vehicle accidents, which accounted for more than 40,000 deaths in 2016. So, why, with so many new safety features on modern cars, are more people dying on the roads? Here with some insights into the spike in deaths is Deborah Hersman. She is President and CEO of the National Safety Council. And prior to joining the NSC, she led the National Transportation Safety Board from 2009 to 2014. And welcome back to Chicago tonight. Good to see you.
Great to be with you.
As you mentioned, the NSC is going to be releasing this report tomorrow about the rise in accidental deaths. The rise in opioid abuse accounts for most of the deaths, and we've talked to you about that before. But number 2 on the list is motor vehicle accidents. Why are we seeing such a rise in motor vehicle fatalities?
You know, for a long time we were actually seeing motor vehicle fatalities go down, and a lot of that was tied to the economy and vehicle miles traveled. Now, as the economy is improving, people are driving more, but that doesn't tell us the full story, because we only saw a 3% increase in vehicle miles traveled, but we saw, for example, last year about a 7% increase in fatalities. And so I think our cell phones have a lot to do with this, whether people are behind the wheel or they're walking distracted. We saw pedestrian fatalities go up 10% just last year.
And more on, have there been any studies done on texting and driving, or being on the phone and driving, or pedestrians walking and texting?
Yeah, absolutely. There are dozens of studies out there, and in fact, I think one of the things that people don't understand is that when we talk about distracted driving, we know that hands-free is not risk-free. So a lot of people are getting new cars, they can connect their phones and talk hands-free. And there are over 30 studies that show being hands-free is not less dangerous than holding your phone. If it was your hand that was distracted, we would have outlawed stick-shift cars. It's your brain that's distracted, and whether you're holding the phone or whether you're talking into the dashboard, you still have your attention focused elsewhere when you're behind the wheel.
So what do you make of some of these new applications or new options on cars where you can actually shop while you're driving?
Yeah, so GM just released something called Marketplace last month, and it allows people to shop, order coffee, make reservations while they're behind the wheel. We think this is a really bad idea. Yes, it's convenient for consumers, but you really want the first priority of the person who's behind the wheel to be operating the car, not thinking about what they're going to have in their latte. Do those things when you're parked, when you're safe, when you're at the drive-through, not when you're driving the vehicle.
To what extent do you think that stricter enforcement could be helpful? For example, just in the past few days, one of the suburbs here in Chicago started, I believe it was Niles, I might be wrong, started really cracking down on the use of cell phones while driving. How big a difference does that make?
So we know that having good laws, good education, and good enforcement does change behavior. We've seen it with seat belts. We've seen it with alcohol-impaired driving. When people know that there is going to be a high visibility law enforcement campaign, they're less likely to engage in the behavior that's dangerous. And so it's not just getting the people who might be driving impaired or not wearing their seat belts or using their phones. It's helping everyone else to see, I don't want to do that, and so changing their behaviors. We know that when you don't have your eyes on the road and you don't have your mind on the driving task, people make mistakes. And unfortunately, when we see those fatalities going up, even though our vehicles are getting safer, it's because human beings continue to make 94% of the roadway fatalities are human error. So we're making some fatal errors.
How about pedestrians? When you look at the rise of pedestrian deaths, is there evidence to connect that with social media?
Yeah, so we certainly see more distracted pedestrians. Anybody who walks around downtown in Chicago can see it. We know that we've seen fatalities go up when it comes to pedestrians, and certainly there is a lot of research and data to show we are seeing more ER admissions. The National Safety Council published a study by the University of Maryland just about cell phone use and distracted walking, where people were having serious injuries, falls, broken bones, sprains, serious things where you'd go to the ER. And so that, we saw those numbers going up as well. So we do know whether people are in their home and having accidents or whether they are out on the streets near motor vehicles, more dangerous environment, people are distracted.
Back to the issue of motor vehicles, one of the things the National Safety Council is supporting is the introduction of so-called textilizers. What are they?
So when we think about in 1953, when Dr. Borkenstein introduced the breathalyzer, before that, we would know that maybe people were impaired, but not whether or not they were at the legal limit or how impaired they were. In this case, the textilizer is really technology that's going to say whether or not people were using their phone at the time of the crash. It's the equivalent of having a breathalyzer for technology.
Well, some people are concerned if you have a textilizer that it can tap into what you were saying, who you were talking to, that sort of thing. Is that what the textilizer does?
So really the intent there is to give you a 0 or 1. Were you using the phone or not? And then if law enforcement or others want to go after more information, they can subpoena those records.
So, but the main point is to show whether or not a cell phone, say, was being used when an accident happened.
That's right, actively used, tapping the screen, engaging in using the phone, not using it for mapping or something that's happening passively in the background.
So what other kinds of things would the NSC like to see in terms of technology that could help safety for drivers and for pedestrians?
So the great news is with respect to our vehicles, every day we're seeing better technology coming out. If we all just had 3 technologies, automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, and blind spot monitor, we could save 10,000 lives every year and prevent over 1 million crashes. These are 3 technologies that are available in cars today, but often as options, not as standard features.
Do you see the automotive industry going more towards, for example, I've noticed that some of the features you just mentioned are becoming more standard depending on different model levels and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we don't want safety just to be for those who can afford it, not just in the high-end cars. The great news is through a voluntary agreement, 20 auto manufacturers worked with the Department of Transportation to commit to putting automatic emergency braking in all makes and models by 2022. And we have a number of companies like Toyota that made it standard in 2018. So they're beating that voluntary commitment, and that's great for consumers. So we want to use that technology, and we want to accelerate it into the fleet. The challenge is our cars are lasting longer than ever before. The average age of cars in the U.S. is now 11.5 years old.
You were in Washington last week to talk about something called the Road to Zero initiative. What is that?
So we have over 500 organizations that have joined the National Safety Council and the Department of Transportation in the last year, and they are focused on how do we get to 0 fatalities in the United States on our roads by 2050. And so we're really trying to build that roadmap of how to reduce fatalities. The U.S. lags other industrialized countries in making gains in the highway safety arena, and we want to change that.
You know, I wanted to talk about rail safety more than we're going to be able to. I just have time to ask you one question, and that is something that would very well have prevented deadly crashes, including the recent one in Washington just before Christmas. What is positive train control?
So positive train control is technology that keeps trains from colliding with each other, and it uses GPS. Just like the GPS in our phones, keeps trains from colliding with each other or going too fast for conditions. It can slow or stop the train before a derailment or a collision.
And why isn't it more widely used?
You know, there is a lot of concern because this is technology that's been around since 1970s. The NTSB has recommended it, and in fact, we investigated an event right here in the Chicago area when I was at the board in 2005, recommended PTC here for Metro.
Deborah Hersman, thank you for this update. We'll have to have you back to talk more about rail safety because we didn't give it its due today. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You as well. Learning to play in an orchestra is a common enough experience in a student's musical education.